Welcome to the Binteger podcast. My name is Biniam. I'm your host of this podcast. This is episode number 20. This is the place where integrity calls and wholeness responds. Love talking all things in relation to integrity and how we can become better through integrity. Today we are talking about a very interesting question, and this one actually kind of hits personal to me in a surprising way for some of you, because you might be like, say what? And we're talking about if a criminal record, listen carefully, if a criminal record could preclude one or make one not be able to live with integrity. Does a criminal record stop one from being able to experience integrity in their lives? Let's dive into that after we do our feelings check-in. Our feelings check-in is the way we carve out time on this podcast to practice in the moment integrity with ourselves. And part of this is all wrapped up in how can we speak honestly? How can we speak honestly about what's going on inside our hearts, inside our minds, inside our mental space? And how can we be able to not only speak honestly about it, but also describe it and put words to it? And so I'm going to go ahead and start here today. In this moment, I'm feeling a little bit affirmed. I'm feeling a little affirmed. Today I had not a tremendous disagreement. It wasn't a disagreement. It was kind of a blow up from one of the people that reported to me at work. And it was the kind of exchange that it came out of nowhere, and it just kind of boom, blew up. And I wasn't feeling very good after that exchange, but I knew that I had to address it and talk about it and address the behavior that was exhibited and put forth, because it was something that was just clearly outside my boundaries. So I had my boundaries, and that definitely crossed over in an unexpected way. And I was like kind of shocked. I'm like, okay, this is happening, but we're going to address this. And I'm feeling affirmed because in the aftermath, I talked to my supervisors, of course, about this scenario. They were there for that. And they definitely affirmed me, saying, no, Biniam, you were in the right, and you did everything, as you should have. And we're dealing with the individual as well to ensure that, we see some other options in how to engage and communicate, especially when one's frustrated. So I'm feeling really affirmed and encouraged by that. I'm feeling affirmed and encouraged because I have the backing of those that I work with, and that means a lot. It's not that I'm trying to get people on my side. I'm very open to when I've made a mistake and stepped over a line. But this is something that was just like, no. And you know what else? I'm also super grateful, really grateful that I have the skill set emotionally to be able to navigate through those quagmires. Once upon a time, I would have been devastated and I would have gone and felt terrible for myself. But I'm in a zone of life right now where my mental space is very strong, and I was able to engage it in, I feel, a really mature way going forward. And so I'm super, super thankful for that. So that's where I'm at in this moment, feeling grateful, feeling encouraged, and feeling affirmed. My dear Bintegers. Now you might be wondering, why do I call you Binteger? And who is a Binteger? I actually wrote this down in my notepad. Let me just pull it out here. But I define a Binteger, and that's the name of this podcast. A Binteger for me is one who desires to be whole through integrity. And you'll remember the tagline for this podcast is integrity calls and wholeness responds or answers. And I love that because it's almost the whole promise wrapped up in what I'm calling you to. If you can consider and imagine integrity as this personified being that is calling you into a relationship with her. And she's saying, come and let me join my life with yours. The promise that integrity fulfills should we acquiesce and yield to her influence in our lives is wholeness in the way that we think, in the way that we live, in the way that we experience life in general. And so I love that tagline. Integrity calls. It's very active. And wholeness responds. This is the outcome that's going to come about. So maybe you're in that season of life, my dear Binteger. That's why I call you Bintegers, those who are actively desiring to be whole through integrity. So dear Binteger, maybe you are at this moment feeling some feels. Maybe it was a rough day for you and you'd rather not just think about it at all. You maybe had some difficult conversations or disagreements. Maybe you are in a long-standing zone of a Cold War relationally with someone who's really important in your life, but you guys don't know how to figure things out. Perhaps you're excited because you're in love, or maybe there is an element of contentment. Like, where are you at in this present moment as you're considering your existence? And yes, you exist. But do you exist on purpose? Are you living in the moment saying, I'm savoring all that I'm experiencing in life, both the good and the challenging, because both really help make life enjoyable when we contrast and say, wow, there's so many seasons that we go through, but we were able to live as if we were living on purpose. So that's my question to you, my dear Bintegers. How are you doing in that zone? I'd love to hear from you. I'd love for you to carve out a little bit of time, even as I've taken time out in this podcast to address that. I do like to read a few options for feelings to give you some more resources by way of language and vocabulary and how to describe for yourself how you're feeling. And so here's just a handful that I'm going to read for you. Numb, frustrated, sensitive, nervous, and insecure. Let me read these feelings and emotions that are the challenging ones and uncomfortable ones. That you might be numb or frustrated, sensitive, nervous, or insecure. And in the positive category, you might be feeling calm. You might be feeling inspired or centered. Perhaps you're feeling touched. Let me read those again. Calm, inspired, centered, or touched. I hope those will serve you well as you sort of deposit those in your mind's eye and say, okay, here's what I'm looking for when I move forward into the future. I'm going to mix up my cards. I've already gone through them once, and we'll keep on making this a part of our podcast. Let's now dive into the question I'm asking. If one has a criminal record, is it possible for them to be able to experience or walk in integrity? That's the question I'm answering. If one has a criminal record, is it possible for them to have integrity, or are they precluded because they have a criminal record? What are your thoughts? And why I was saying that this might be a surprising one is that unexpectedly, I came into a setting a year and a half ago where charges were formally brought against me, and I've got my whole story on my YouTube channel by my name, Binny Mastris, so you can go check that out there, because I'm not going to dive into it here. But charges were brought against me formally, and it was just one of those experiences that I thought I would never experience in life, because that's not on my radar. I don't participate in activities that would get me to have a criminal record, but unexpectedly, out of the blue, here I am with a criminal record, and I'm seen. I wasn't seen as guilty, but there were storylines that were brought to my my frame of reference that obligated me legally to attend in a court of law and face the charges against me. So, is it possible for one with a criminal record to have integrity, or is it game over? You're guilty, or does it depend on what the crime was, right? Some of us have these certain crimes that we have a special taboo category for, saying we say if it's this kind of a crime, whether it's I don't know, there's some really hot topic ones like pedophilia, for example, or harming kids, or maybe it is murder, or whatever it is that we're like, okay, this is a special kind that whoever does these, they're not even considered human anymore. And some of us may have those perspectives, right? Or and they would contrast that with say someone who maybe stole, a loaf of bread. I was just watching Les Miserables with someone special the other day, and that's one of my favorite movies, and that's the whole premise that starts that story. But here's what I think. I think integrity, listen carefully, integrity is not determined by one's past at all. One's past actions does not determine one's present integrity. All right? Some may be tempted to think you've done something in the past that means it's like you don't have any more chance for redemption in your life. And I disagree. I think our integrity is not determined by our past actions at all. And so for people to keep saying, but you did this in the past and that means you're a terrible person, I don't subscribe to that perspective at all. I think that's a terrible perspective, because I believe as human beings, we are already messy, each and every one of us. We are all messy people. And for us to start divvying up and saying, hey, my expression of messy is better than your expression of messy, and so I become more important as a human being. I don't subscribe to that at all. No, not at all. I think our integrity is determined by our commitment in the present moment to personal growth and following through on ethical and moral decisions that we value and taking responsible for our behavior. In essence, the very definition of integrity for me is how well and consistently do your external actions align with your internal values. That's it, plain and simple. What are your values, and are you living according to your values? Past actions, if they keep on being brought up, who of us could stand? Who of us could face that setting where we could be saying, "Hey, we're innocent"? None of us. We have all messed up in royal ways. So regardless of past experiences, I believe strongly, and I'm really passionate about this, I believe that people can change. We grow over time. We have the capacity to grow. We have the capacity to take ownership and responsibility and accountability for our past actions and say, how do we not do the stuff that is the messy parts that we don't want to keep on doing anymore? And how can we grow into something better? How can we acquire skills? How can we acquire values whereby we say, okay, this now resonates, and here's how I want to live my life? Because we are all equal in our messiness, and we're also all equal in our ability to be able to start doing something different. So no, therefore, criminal records does not determine one's level of integrity, I don't believe. Criminal records, some of them are more vilified, like I said, or more tabooed, causing unfair prejudices. But my perspective, dear Binteger, is that every single human being has access to integrity if they choose in this moment to live consistently with their internal values and making sure that their external actions are aligning. It's possible for a person with a criminal record to not have integrity based on their present choices, just as it is possible for a person in the present moment who has criminal record to have integrity. I believe the question isn't, do you have a criminal record based on past actions? The whole conversation of integrity for me is in this moment and going on from this moment, are you committed to living according to your values and those things that you hold dear, and are you living in alignment with it? That's why we talk about wholeness when we talk about integrity. The word integrity comes from the root word integer. I keep on mentioning this because I'm a geek about the etymology of these words. And integrity, the source of that word, where it comes from, is the mathematical word integer, which stands for a whole number. And it just kind of conveys this idea of, how are you feeling? Are you feeling wholeness, or are you feeling divided internally? So many, in my observation in life, are living in this disjointed, fragmented state where they don't experience and enjoy wholeness. What I'm calling you to, fellow Bintegers, is to join me in living in wholeness, where your internal values are expressed and match your external actions, while you're being true to yourself, like we were in our earlier feelings check-in, and respectful of those who are trying to figure it out on their own as well. Past mistakes, my dear Binteger, or poor judgment do not define a person's true character, or their entire character for that matter, nor their ability to pursue integrity in the future. And that's the big resounding note that I want to leave you with, is that you, my dear listener, you have access to experiencing and walking with integrity regardless of what you've done in your past. Regardless, and I'm going to say something even that some of you may not appreciate, but I think the worst of the worst in our history, the Idi Amins, the Pol Pots, the Hitlers, like all of these awful individuals who we vilified, I think each and every one of them are a fellow human being, just like I am, who has access to walking with integrity as long as they take responsibility for what they've contributed in the past and committing to not doing that anymore. I think there's a strong possibility for us collectively to experience transformation and change. And that's why I love talking about integrity on this podcast. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear what your responses are to some of these ideas. In short, I think a criminal record is not the point. The point is, in this present moment, are we committed to living with integrity? Are we committed to doing the hard work of doing self-reflection, assessing what our values are, realigning our thought processes and our actions to make sure that we are being whole in walking with integrity. Thank you so much for listening to this 20th episode. I can't wait to see you on the next episode. Ciao for now.